Oh boy, this has been quite the entertaining season. I just can't wait to see how all these stories end next year. What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Anderson here, and this is Daredevil Born Again, Season 1, Episode 7, Art for Art's Sake. So it's kind of funny. I had totally forgotten about the kid that went up to Heather at her book signing and said that he needed help. And then they showed him in the previously on at the beginning of this. I'm like, oh, he's Muse. Anytime you have a villain that's in a mask, I'm just going to assume it's somebody that we know, but I just could not think who it would make sense for it to be. But then as soon as I saw that kid, I'm like, oh yeah, he just showed up. We never saw him again. It makes sense that he's Muse. And so as the episode goes along, he goes and starts talking to Heather. I'm like, yeah, here we go. He's going to reveal who he is. And finding out that he actually was doing this because of Heather, not sure if I called that one. But yeah, most of this episode is pretty straightforward. Matt going to save Heather, Kingpin trying to deal with the fact that Daredevil is back, and how is he going to use this? And I do think his plan pretty clever, making sure that everybody thinks it was his task force that did it, not Daredevil, which means anybody who has been calling out for the vigilantes to return, to start helping them again, now he could say, no, look, we did this. This was all us. So I think it's a very good move in this game of chess that they seem to be playing. One thing I will say that I'm not as much of a fan of in this episode, though, is Cherry's conversation with Matt. I feel like he's a little over the top with this. I understand why he's frustrated with him, why he doesn't want him to go out and be Daredevil again. But all Matt has to say is the girl went off on her own. She was going to get killed if I didn't do anything. Like, yes, that is on her, but she's also still a kid. I don't feel like Cherry would just be like, yeah, you should have just let her die. So I don't really understand that conversation and why it took the turn it did. Just feels like they wanted to break up that friendship for now, to maybe rekindle it by the end of the season. But I will say the most interesting stuff in this episode was probably the stuff with Kingpin. First of all, the stuff with Vanessa is still very interesting because there is that frustration, I think, from her because of what she used to do. And so there is a question of, is she going to turn on him because Luca offers her that possibility. I don't know if at the end, if we're supposed to assume that she didn't actually turn on him and that she told him what the plan was, or if we're supposed to assume that Fisk just knew what she was trying to do, made sure Buck was there to help him out. But whatever the case, it does provide a bit of intrigue and mystery that I'm very interested to see where it's going to go next. But also, like I said, the move that he makes at the end of this episode is a very clever one, and it sets up for Daredevil's return to be maybe a little bit more difficult than he planned. Because I think if he had shown up and saved some people, and it started to get around that he was out there helping people again, and then Fisk makes the decision to put out the anti-vigilante task force, then I think he loses a lot of people and a lot of their trust because, well, he's helping people, and you're really just going to have all these people go out and stop him from helping people? But now, because he's already put this team in place, he's given them credit for Muse, I think it's going to make it a lot more difficult for Daredevil to go out and start helping because people will be like, well, he hasn't been helping us for a long time, and Fisk has, so we trust him more. But the final thing is probably the weirdest thing out of everything that happened with Fisk was Daniel. Where did this come from? This sudden confidence and cockiness, almost intimidation factor that he's trying to pull on BB. Where did this come from? Was it just that one moment whenever he betrayed Fisk, and it was because BB did that to him? Did that give him the confidence to suddenly start talking to her like this? Because suddenly sounds like an evil mastermind, the way he's talking to her in this episode. So I don't know where that came from. It was a little weird. I feel like it would have made a lot more sense if he just went to her just angry and bitter about the whole thing and either just broke off the friendship that they have or maybe did threaten her, but not in the way that we saw in this episode. More like he threatened her from a position of he was really pissed off. But that's not how it came off. It came off as like he's suddenly in full control of the entire situation. And again, very much like an evil mastermind explaining his devious plans to his victim. It just was very odd. But as far as the final two episodes, don't really know where it's going to go next. I thought we were building up for Daredevil versus Muse, but clearly that's done. So I don't know if it's just going to be Daredevil versus the anti-vigilante task force, but whatever the case, kind of excited. I'm very curious to see where this season's going to end. Yeah, I'm glad I finally have something to be excited about when it comes to Marvel, because it's not really been the case for a long time. That's it for this episode, so on to the next one. I'll see you there. And now episode 8, Isle of Joy. So this one definitely sets up very well for the season finale. Don't know exactly how Matt's going to be fighting in the current condition he's in, but yeah, a lot of different interesting moving pieces in this one. I mean, all in all, there's really not a whole lot that I can talk about review-wise in this episode because it was good. I will say something that I do like is some of the choices when it comes to the camera work and the editing. The thing with Poindexter, I don't know exactly what it is. I can't remember if that was something from the Netflix show that I'm forgetting now. I might have to look it up when I'm editing this and see if I can figure out why they tint it blue like that whenever he's in his zone, I suppose. But they've done this before in the season, but having whenever Matt is listening, trying to take in all of the information, and it goes from, I guess it would be like the theater aspect ratio and then opens up a bit, kind of what he's doing with his hearing. It's a very clever trick to showcase that to the audience. And considering how little Marvel has done show don't tell in recent history, it's nice to actually have a show that is showing us something and not just telling us, hey guys, Matt's opening up his ears right now so he can hear everything in the room. Because I feel like on a lesser show, that's what they would have done. Vanessa would have asked him, oh, what are you doing? And he'd be like, oh, I'm opening up my listening so I can hear around the entire room. So it's just nice that they found a way to show us what he's doing. But a couple of questions that I do have, even at the end of this. First of all, why did Vanessa want Foggy killed? I'm glad they didn't make it to where Kingpin is the one that called in the hit, because that would just make it way too obvious. But according to Matt, he was apparently about to win some case. Was it related to Kingpin in some way? I don't even know if we really ever heard what the trial was about. But it sounds like Foggy was about to win it. He was already celebrating the victory. And then that's when he was taken out by Vanessa, apparently. So I hope we get some more answers about that. But also, I do have to wonder, why did Poindexter think it was Fisk? Or I guess, why is Poindexter going after Fisk? I guess he assumes Fisk is the one that tried to have him killed in prison, so he decided to return the favor. So does he not know that it was Vanessa that hired him? Maybe since she was the one in charge of the business, she sent somebody to make the deal with him, and he assumed Fisk was still in charge and didn't know Vanessa was. But I'm going to need a little bit more clarification on that as well, as far as why he was going after Fisk there. I guess I am remembering now, there is one other scene that I would like to talk about that I thought was very well handled, is the scene whenever Vanessa and Fisk are talking about Adam. Meanwhile, we see Matt and Heather discussing vigilantes and going to the ball and all of this. Once again, I think they do a very effective job of showcasing how Matt and Fisk are two sides of the same coin. They're both going through very similar situations throughout most of this season, and this was another great example where they're both having this difficult conversation with their significant other. And what's kind of interesting about it is Fisk is actually the one in this scenario that ends up winning in the argument that he and Vanessa were having, whereas Matt kind of just walks away from the whole situation. Doesn't really give her too much of an answer about going to the ball and everything. Yeah, that's the biggest thing that I'm taking out of this episode, though, is how many times they can show us something without directly telling us what they're doing. Without directly telling us that Matt's using his powers, without directly telling us that Matt and Fisk are very connected. It's just nice to have a show that finally does that and doesn't have to spell out every single scene like we're a bunch of idiots. But don't know how the finale is going to end. I already know there's a season 2 coming, so I don't know if they're going to leave this on a cliffhanger, build it up for next season, or if we are going to get a lot of conclusion here. But I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. So with all that being said, let's see how the finale wraps up. I'll see you there in a sec. And finally, episode 9, Straight to Hell. Well, what a season finale, and definitely setting up for season 2. Basically doesn't have really any conclusion as far as Kingpin's story. We do get some answers. We learn that apparently Foggy was going to show that his client's case should get dismissed because this port is actually a free city, so essentially ruining the plans for the Fisks to turn the port into their own little city-state, according to Matt. So that does make sense. It makes sense why Vanessa was trying to get rid of Foggy. Still doesn't really explain what happened with Poindexter, though. So we see Vanessa did recruit him personally, so he knew it was her. In fact, he was aiming at her, but then the blue light fades, which means he's not as focused anymore. And for some reason, he then aims at Kingpin instead. So a couple things that are confusing about that. First of all, obviously we know Matt jumped in front of Kingpin, so did he just assume Poindexter thought it was Kingpin that hired him, and so he was going to go after him? Or maybe that Kingpin was the one that put him in Gen Pop? I guess the question is, why did Matt assume that he was going after Kingpin, and then why did Poindexter decide to go after Kingpin instead? It's like, Matt's hearing is obviously very good, but I don't think he could tell which way which direction the gun was pointing. Also, I will say the fact that he can somehow tell that Frank cut his hair and shaved his beard. Again, his hearing is really good, but I'm pretty sure he can't actually tell what people's faces look like unless he touches them. Or like that one scene in, I think, the first season of Daredevil, unless the rain is hitting their face and he can hear all of that. So I don't know how he was able to tell that. It was definitely a very interesting episode as far as all the twists and turns it took along the way. Obviously, Frank showing up to help him fight at his apartment was very entertaining, and yeah, they are definitely not holding back with this one. I mean, it's already pretty apparent with the one cop's arm, and then when he broke Devlin's leg. There were several moments that were already pretty gruesome, but this this episode just went all out. The one cop that Frank shot through the head, and there was just a hole. Damn, okay. I will say the blood splatter when Frank was running through the port, blood splatter didn't look that convincing. But other than that, they did a pretty good job with making these deaths, these kills look very gruesome and realistic in a way. Now, we'll say one thing that helped with that is they made it dark. The problem is, story-wise, that doesn't really make any sense. Or I guess it doesn't make sense if Kingpin wants them to take down Daredevil, which it seems like he does. But making it dark, you're basically giving him the advantage. He already can't see. So making it dark means now your guys are on the same playing field as him, but he's already better than them, even when they can see. So taking away that advantage from them, it doesn't help. So I don't really understand why. I guess it was more so just to set up this chaos in the city, but I don't know for sure. But yes, it being dark did allow them to do some stuff with the CGI that I don't think is as noticeable when it's darker. So that helped out in that sense, but somebody's gonna have to explain why that helps as far as taking down Daredevil. But we also see Karen comes back, and they are keeping that sort of connection that she and Frank have. I don't think anything ever truly came of that, if I'm not mistaken, in the original show or his show. But there was always just that connection that they had. Felt like there was something that could be there, but they never truly did anything about it. But I will also say, seeing the conversation between Karen and Matt when they're in the storage locker, as much as I'm somebody that doesn't like to talk a lot about relationship stuff in superhero shows, especially when it takes over the show, like some DC CW shows that I've watched, but talking about Matt and Heather, they've been fine for the most part. It's kind of interesting to see a lawyer and a therapist date because neither of them can really talk about what they're doing at work. But Heather in the past couple episodes is obviously, there's been a rift forming between her and Matt because he's starting to get back into his Daredevil stuff, and you can see that bothers her. She doesn't like vigilantes, she doesn't trust them, and we see at the end, obviously, she's working with Fisk to, I guess, solve the vigilante problem. And while I've been fine with them so far, I will say, from the first episode and then from this episode, Charlie Cox and Deborah Ann Wall, they just have a certain chemistry about them. I do kind of want Matt and Karen to be together at the end of it. I don't know if they're going to do that. I don't think they're going to do that personally. But there's just something about the two of them. Whenever they're in a scene, it feels so real. It feels so genuine, and they feel so natural together. And there's just something about that natural chemistry that some actors can have. Anytime they're with somebody else, it just feels weird. Like whenever they would have those scenes between Karen and Frank in the Punisher show, or even in this episode, whenever she was talking to him, it feels weird to me. And then Matt and Heather getting together, they've been fine, but it just doesn't feel the same as Matt and Karen. There's something about the two of them. I don't know why. I can't fully explain it other than what I've already said. The actors just really work together, and so it makes me want the characters together. But moving on to the Kingpin stuff, because we see he's finally just taken over the city with all the power that he has. And it is funny how when we started the season, he was concerned about the optics. He was concerned about what people thought of it because he realized that's part of being mayor. He has to get the people to like him. But now he's gotten to a point where he's flipped the script. He's changed the narrative. He's used some of these sources that he has to make it seem like everything he's doing is working, when in reality we know that some of it is brought about by his own hand. So it's interesting that now he feels like he can do this whole power grab, and people are probably going to support him on it because they don't see that he's the one causing a lot of these problems and providing the solution as well. So it's very, very clever setup in that sense, and it's going to be interesting to see how Matt and I don't know who else is going to be involved. Obviously, we saw Karen is there. We see Detective Kim is there as well. And then some of the other cops that I'm assuming are not a part of the corruption that we've seen so far. It's going to be interesting to see how are they going to combat this, because they're going to have to find a way to show everything that he's been doing behind the scenes and prove it to the people that probably don't want to see it, probably have bought in so much that they'll just assume, oh, well, this is just people trying to attack him because, well, he's ruining what they try to do, so they're just trying to go after him for it. So I do really like this setup for season 2. I am on the fence about whether or not I like how the season ended, the fact that it is kind of a cliffhanger and building up to season 2. It really depends. Because I take Loki, for example. Season 1 ended with a bit of a cliffhanger, and it did leave me wanting more, but then Season 2 wrapped it up really nicely, and now I look at the series as a whole very fondly. This is going to be the same way. Season 1, I am wanting more, obviously, because I want to see where this is all going to go, but if Season 2 does its job really well, then I'm going to look back on the series as a whole and have really enjoyed it. Yeah, a couple of the scenes on Kingpin's side of things that I will say, it's shown me how invested I am, because in other Marvel products, I probably see scenes like this and just think it was really stupid and think the characters were really dumb. In this one, though, first of all, looking at Sheila, hers feels like a betrayal, because she seemed not necessarily like a good person, but she did seem a bit more level-headed. She did seem like somebody that she was going along with Fisk because she's in this position and she wants to keep this position even when Fisk is gone. So she's doing her job for now. She's trying to help him out, keep the optics looking good, keep him in line, but this just feels like that step too far, where she sees clearly what he's doing is evil, and yet whether it's out of fear or out of just pure devotion to the job, she ends up betraying Gallo. And his death, whew, yeah, that was crazy, but I just could not believe that she gave Kingpin that recording of the conversation, because she knew what was going to happen to him, and while I don't think she knows for sure that he's dead, because obviously Kingpin said he resigned, I feel like there's a part of her that's going to know what happened. But the other scene that it almost made me laugh in a way, is whenever Kingpin was talking to Buck and basically told him to go take out Matt. And I started to laugh. I'm like, what a bitch. Matt just saved your life, you asshole. And your really first thing, well, I hate him, so this is going to be a good time to take him out and make it seem like, oh, he died from his wounds protecting me. What a swell guy. I don't know why, but it was kind of funny, because before it felt like they had this mutual hatred for each other, but in a way they respected each other for that hatred. This was just a low thing. He just took a bullet for you. He's recovering from that bullet, saving your life. You're welcome. And you're really going to take that opportunity to be like, yeah, let's kill him off while he's still in his hospital bed. Something about that just feels petty from Kingpin, to a point where it feels almost out of character. Like, if he figured out that Matt was the one that helped Bullseye get out, then I could understand, well, yeah, you took a bullet for me, but you're also the reason I was put in harm's way to begin with. But I'm pretty sure he doesn't know that. But as far as the cliffhanger is concerned, it's fairly interesting. I do wonder what Frank's going to do at the beginning of next season, since he tricked that one guard for some reason into giving him a handshake. All I could think was, you're an idiot. Why would you even think that this is a good idea to go give him a handshake? It's so dumb. But I do wonder, are we going to pick up where we left off here, like right away? Or is it going to be maybe a few months later? We're going to see how things have progressed. Maybe we'll see this little rebellion that Matt and Karen have put together has grown, and we'll see Kingpin's grip on the city is probably tightening. But I am very excited to see where Season 2 goes. I think it's probably the thing I'm most excited for coming from Marvel soon. And I'm just glad to have a show that's actually got me feeling this way, because I have not really experienced this from Marvel in a while. Like, even some of these shows where maybe there were some good elements to it, like Agatha All Along, they had a couple of good episodes that I was actually interested in, and it got me kind of excited to see more of it. But this is something different. This gives me actual enjoyment. I actually enjoyed myself watching this show. Not all of it was perfect. There are still some issues. Like, I do think some of the character moments were a little frustrating, or you think about the one guy that stole the candy, or Hector's niece that was bitching out Matt for not doing anything as a lawyer. Like, there were a couple of scenes that were frustrating, but overall, I had a really good time with this. And as long as they keep doing what they're doing here, I'm pretty confident that Season 2 will also be a good time as well. But I think that's about it for Season 1, so let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these final 3 episodes, as well as this season as a whole? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all the good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Daredevil Born Again reviews. Also, check out the channel. We have a lot of other reviews on here, so check those out if you have time. But until next time, I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll talk to y'all later. Peace out.